It was a quiet evening in a small neighborhood where life seemed to flow at its own gentle pace. Children played in the park, elderly couples took their routine strolls, and the sun was setting in hues of gold and crimson. Among the usual sights in this area was a stray dog, known to the locals as a friendly but unclaimed companion. With his scruffy golden-brown fur and watchful eyes, he was loved by many, but belonged to none. That evening, as the dog wandered near the park, he noticed something unusual. His keen senses picked up tension in the air, a feeling that something wasn't quite right. Across the street, he saw a little girl who was no more than 7 years old. She was sitting on a bench, swinging her legs and humming to herself. She appeared to be waiting for someone, perhaps her parents. The dog stopped in his tracks, his ears perking up at the sound of an approaching car. A van slowed to a halt near the bench where the girl sat. Two strangers emerged, a man and a woman, both wearing unassuming clothes but carrying an air of unease. The dog's ears twitched as he observed their movements. The couple approached the girl, their smiles overly wide and their voices soft yet strange. One of them crouched down to her level, speaking in a tone that seemed friendly but had an undertone that the dog instinctively mistrusted. The little girl hesitated, clutching her small backpack. Her innocent eyes darted from the couple to the street, perhaps searching for her parents. Sensing her unease, the man's tone shifted slightly, becoming more insistent. The dog growled softly under his breath, still unnoticed by the couple. As the man reached out to touch the girl's shoulder, the dog's growl grew louder, and he stepped forward, his body tense and ready. In an instant, the couple's demeanor changed. The woman glanced around nervously, and the man's face hardened. They realized they didn't have much time. The man grabbed the girl's arm while the woman opened the van's door. The girl cried out, her voice carrying fear and confusion. That's when the dog sprang into action. With a speed and determination that surprised even himself, the dog charged toward the man, barking ferociously. His sudden attack startled the couple, causing the man to let go of the girl. The girl stumbled back, her backpack falling to the ground. The dog's barks echoed through the quiet street, drawing the attention of passers-by. The man tried to fend the dog off, but the stray was relentless, snapping and growling with an intensity that sent shivers down their spines. The woman panicked and shouted for the man to get back in the van. The dog's sharp teeth grazed the man's arm, causing him to retreat in pain. The girl, now free, ran toward the direction of her house, tears streaming down her face. A few bystanders began to approach, some pulling out their phones to record the commotion or call for help. The couple, realizing they had lost their chance, scrambled into the van and sped away, leaving the dog standing in the middle of the street, his chest heaving and his eyes fixed on the retreating vehicle. The little girl's parents arrived moments later, having been alerted by a concerned neighbor who had seen the girl running. They scooped her up in a tight embrace, tears of relief in their eyes. The dog watched from a distance, his tail wagging slightly as if to say, "She's safe now." Word of the incident spread quickly throughout the neighborhood. The footage captured by onlookers was shared on social media, where it quickly went viral. People were amazed by the bravery of the stray dog, who had risked his life to protect a child he didn't even know. Offers to adopt him poured in, but the dog seemed to prefer his freedom. He continued to roam the neighborhood, though now he was greeted with even more affection and respect than before. A few days later, the little girl and her parents visited the park where it all happened. The girl carried a bag filled with treats and a shiny new collar. Spotting the dog lying under a tree, she ran up to him with a bright smile. The dog's tail thumped against the ground as she approached. She knelt beside him and gently placed the collar around his neck. "You're my hero," she whispered, her voice full of gratitude. The dog licked her hand in response, his eyes soft and full of trust. From that day on, the stray was no longer just a nameless wanderer. He had found a home, a family, and a place in the hearts of everyone who heard his story. Though he continued to explore the streets as he always had, he now had a safe haven to return to. And whenever anyone asked about the scruffy dog with the golden brown fur, they'd hear the tale of his incredible bravery, a story that reminded everyone of the extraordinary bond between humans and animals. Part 2. The days that followed were filled with excitement and gratitude from the neighborhood. The little girl's parents couldn't stop talking about the heroic dog, and they made it a mission to ensure he was cared for. The father built a small shelter for him in their backyard, complete with a soft blanket and fresh water. Though the dog didn't immediately settle in the shelter, preferring his freedom to roam, he seemed to appreciate the gesture. Meanwhile, the girl's parents worked with the local community to raise awareness about the dangers of child abduction. They organized a neighborhood meeting to discuss safety tips, sharing their own experience and the dog's heroic role in saving their daughter. The dog became the symbol of their campaign, and his story inspired others to stay vigilant and look out for one another. At the same time, the girl couldn't get enough of her newfound friend. Every day after school, she would look for the dog, bringing him treats and spending time with him in the park. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day, and the dog seemed to understand her gratitude and affection. He stayed close to her whenever she was around, his protective instincts still as sharp as ever. The days following the heroic act of the stray dog brought a sense of renewed hope and inspiration to the neighborhood. People couldn't stop talking about how the scruffy, golden-brown dog had saved the little girl. Families would gather in the evenings at the park, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. The dog, however, seemed unaffected by all the attention. He went about his usual routine, trotting along familiar streets, sniffing at garbage bins, and occasionally napping in the shade of a tree. But something had changed. He was no longer just a stray. He was a hero. The little girl, who had been shaken by the incident, began visiting the park more often with her parents. Each time, she carried a bag of treats, hoping to see the dog. Her parents, still deeply grateful for what he had done, encouraged this newfound bond. They even started carrying a leash, just in case the dog showed interest in being part of their family. One sunny afternoon, the girl and her parents found the dog lying under his favorite tree, his head resting on his paws. The girl approached him cautiously, not wanting to startle him. She crouched down a few feet away and extended her hand, holding out a treat. The dog's ears perked up, and he lifted his head to look at her. For a moment, he seemed to hesitate, his dark eyes studying her carefully. Then, with a gentle wag of his tail, he stood up and padded over to her. The girl's face lit up with joy as the dog sniffed her hand before taking the treat. She reached out to pet him, and he leaned into her touch, his tail wagging more enthusiastically now. Her parents watched from a short distance, their hearts full of gratitude and hope. It was clear that the dog trusted their daughter, and perhaps, in time, he might trust them too. As the days turned into weeks, the bond between the girl and the dog grew stronger. She started bringing him toys, which he would sometimes play with but mostly just carry around proudly. Her parents decided to name him Buddy, a name that seemed to suit his friendly and loyal nature. Though Buddy continued to roam the streets, he began spending more and more time near their house. It was as if he had found a balance between his independent spirit and his newfound connection with the family. One evening, as the family sat on their porch, Buddy appeared at the gate, his tail wagging. The little girl ran to greet him, throwing her arms around his neck. Her parents looked at each other, silently agreeing that it was time to officially make Buddy a part of their family. They opened the gate and invited him in. To their surprise, he walked in confidently, as if he had been waiting for this moment all along. Life with Buddy quickly became a new normal. The family bought him a comfortable bed, which he occasionally used but often preferred to sleep near the little girl's bed. He accompanied them on walks, guarded their home, and even seemed to understand their emotions. Whenever the girl was upset, Buddy would sit beside her, resting his head on her lap until she smiled again. His presence brought an incredible sense of security and happiness to their lives. But Buddy's story didn't end there. The incident with the kidnappers had left a mark on the community. Parents became more vigilant, teaching their children about safety and watching over them more carefully. The local authorities also stepped up their efforts, patrolling the area more frequently and educating residents about potential dangers. Buddy's bravery had sparked a sense of collective responsibility among the people, reminding them of the importance of looking out for one another. One day, the family received an unexpected visitor. A journalist, intrigued by Buddy's story, wanted to write an article about him. The little girl excitedly shared every detail of how Buddy had saved her, her eyes sparkling with admiration. The journalist took photos of Buddy and the family, capturing the unique bond they shared. When the article was published, it gained widespread attention, bringing Buddy's story to an even larger audience. People from nearby towns started visiting the park, hoping to see the famous stray-turned hero. Some brought him gifts, while others simply wanted to meet him and thank him for his bravery. Buddy, however, remained humble and unassuming, accepting the attention with quiet grace. For him, life was simple: protect those he cared about, enjoy the love he received, and stay true to himself. As Buddy's fame grew, so did the family's desire to ensure his happiness. They worked together to build a spacious enclosure in their backyard, complete with a cozy doghouse, toys, and plenty of space for Buddy to roam. Though he had the freedom to come and go as he pleased, Buddy seemed to appreciate having a place to call his own. He spent more and more time at home, especially in the evenings when the family gathered for dinner. He had become an irreplaceable part of their lives. One night, as the family sat together under the stars, the little girl looked at Buddy and said, "You're my best friend." Buddy, lying at her feet, wagged his tail and let out a contented sigh. Her parents smiled, knowing that Buddy had not only saved their daughter's life but had also brought a sense of love and unity to their family. As time went on, Buddy continued to inspire those around him. His story served as a reminder of the extraordinary courage and loyalty that animals can possess. He had proven that even a stray, overlooked by many, could make a difference in the world. And for the little girl and her family, Buddy was more than just a dog. He was a symbol of hope, resilience, and unconditional love. As time passed, Buddy's presence became an integral part of the family's daily routine. He wasn't just a pet, he was a companion, a protector, and a symbol of resilience. The little girl, who once feared being alone after the traumatic incident, now found immense comfort in Buddy's unwavering loyalty. They did everything together, from morning walks in the park to lazy afternoons playing in the backyard. Buddy's golden brown coat seemed to shine brighter under the affection he received, and his eyes reflected a quiet contentment. The neighborhood, too, embraced Buddy in ways that went beyond simple admiration. Local children would stop by the family's house to play with him, bringing him treats or tossing him a ball. The shopkeepers on the street recognized him and would often hand him scraps or pats on the head whenever he wandered by. Buddy had become a local celebrity, and his tale of bravery continued to inspire people far beyond the confines of the small community. One afternoon, as the girl and her parents were in the park, they noticed a group of volunteers setting up a booth near the entrance. Curious, they approached and learned that it was an event to raise awareness about animal rescue and adoption. The organizers had heard about Buddy's story and invited the family to share their experience. Although the little girl felt shy at first, she agreed to speak, wanting others to understand how much Buddy had changed her life. Standing in front of a small crowd, she recounted the day Buddy had saved her. Her voice trembled slightly as she described her fear when the kidnappers tried to grab her and how Buddy's bravery had given her a second chance. By the time she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. The volunteers thanked her and her family for sharing their story, and they invited Buddy to take center stage. As the dog wagged his tail and looked out at the audience, applause erupted, and it was clear that his heroism had touched everyone's hearts. After the event, the family stayed to talk with other attendees. Many shared their own stories of rescue animals, and some even decided to visit the local shelter to adopt a pet of their own. The little girl felt proud that Buddy's story was inspiring others to give animals a chance at a better life. It was a fulfilling day, and as they walked home, Buddy trotted happily beside them, seemingly aware of the good he had done. However, life wasn't without its challenges. As much as Buddy loved his new family and home, he still had moments where his stray instincts kicked in. Occasionally, he would wander off, disappearing for hours before returning with dirt on his fur and a satisfied look on his face. The family worried about his safety during these escapades, especially after what had happened with the kidnappers. They began working on reinforcing their fence and ensuring that Buddy had plenty of stimulation at home to keep him content. One evening, Buddy didn't return home at his usual time. The family waited, calling his name from the porch, but there was no sign of him. The little girl grew anxious, tears welling up in her eyes as she clutched Buddy's leash. Her parents tried to reassure her, but deep down, they were just as worried. They decided to search for him, splitting up and combing the streets with flashlights in hand. As the hours passed, their worry turned to fear. They asked neighbors if they had seen Buddy, but no one had. It wasn't until late into the night that they received a call from a local shopkeeper who recognized Buddy and had seen him near the edge of town. The family rushed to the location, hearts pounding as they scanned the area. Finally, they spotted him. Buddy was lying near a bush, his fur matted and a slight limp in his front leg. When he saw the family, his tail thumped weakly against the ground. The little girl ran to him, her tears turning to relief as she hugged him tightly. Her parents quickly assessed his condition and realized he had likely gotten into a scuffle with another animal. They carefully carried him to the car and took him to the nearest vet. At the clinic, the vet examined Buddy and confirmed that his injuries were minor. He had a small cut on his leg and some bruising, but nothing that wouldn't heal with proper care. The family stayed by his side the entire time, their love for him evident in every gentle touch and whispered word of reassurance. As they drove home, Buddy rested his head on the little girl's lap, his eyes closing in exhaustion but also trust. The incident served as a wake-up call for the family. They realized that while Buddy had a strong spirit, he was not invincible. They decided to take extra precautions to ensure his safety. They installed a GPS tracker on his new collar and spent time training him to stay closer to home. Though it wasn't easy to curb his wandering instincts, Buddy seemed to understand their concern and gradually adapted to the changes. In the months that followed, Buddy's life settled into a comfortable rhythm. He continued to be a source of joy and inspiration for the family and the community. The little girl often read books to him, her voice filling the room with warmth as he lay beside her, content. Her parents, who once saw him as a stray with no direction, now couldn't imagine life without him. Buddy's story also began to reach even further audiences. The journalist who had written about him earlier returned with a proposal to feature Buddy in a documentary about heroic animals. The family agreed, wanting to share Buddy's journey with the world. The filming process was an exciting experience for everyone, and Buddy seemed to enjoy the attention, wagging his tail as cameras followed him around. When the documentary was released, it received widespread acclaim. People from all walks of life were moved by Buddy's courage and the deep bond he shared with the family. Letters and messages poured in from viewers, many of whom shared their own stories of how animals had touched their lives. The family was overwhelmed by the response, but they knew it all came back to Buddy, a stray dog who had found his purpose and, in doing so, had changed countless lives. Despite the fame and attention, Buddy remained the same loyal and humble dog he had always been. For him, life was about the simple joys, playing with the little girl, basking in the sun, and knowing he was loved. And for the family, every day with Buddy was a reminder of the extraordinary bond they shared, one that had started with an act of bravery and had grown into a lifetime of love and gratitude. Buddy's life had transformed in ways no one could have imagined. From being a stray dog wandering the streets to a beloved member of a family, his journey was nothing short of remarkable. The little girl, who had once been traumatized by her encounter with the kidnappers, now walked with newfound confidence, always with Buddy by her side. Her parents marveled at the positive changes in their daughter and knew it was all thanks to their loyal companion. But Buddy's story was far from over. One crisp autumn morning, the family decided to take a trip to a nearby nature reserve. They packed a picnic basket, brought along a frisbee for Buddy, and set out on the short drive. The reserve was known for its scenic trails, sparkling streams, and open fields, a perfect escape from the bustle of daily life. For Buddy, it was an adventure waiting to happen. As they arrived and began exploring, Buddy's excitement was contagious. He darted through the tall grass, his tail wagging furiously as he sniffed every new scent. The little girl giggled as she tossed the frisbee, and Buddy leaped to catch it mid-air, earning cheers from onlookers. It was a day filled with laughter and joy, a memory they would treasure forever. As they walked deeper into the reserve, they came across a quiet clearing by a bubbling stream. The family set up their picnic, spreading out a blanket and unpacking sandwiches and snacks. Buddy lay nearby, chewing on a stick he had found, content to simply be near them. The little girl's laughter filled the air as she dipped her toes in the cool water, and her parents couldn't help but smile at the peaceful scene. However, their tranquil day was about to take an unexpected turn. While exploring the edge of the clearing, Buddy's ears suddenly perked up. He stood still, his nose twitching as he caught a scent that made his instincts flare. The family noticed his change in demeanor and called out to him, but Buddy was already moving, trotting toward the dense trees ahead. Concerned, the father stood up and followed him, motioning for the others to stay by the picnic spot. Buddy's pace quickened as he moved deeper into the woods, his senses guiding him. The father struggled to keep up, calling out to Buddy to stop. Just as he was about to catch up, Buddy let out a series of sharp barks that echoed through the trees. Alarmed, the father quickened his steps and finally came upon a surprising sight. A small fawn was tangled in a cluster of thorny vines, its tiny body trembling with fear. The fawn's legs were scratched and bleeding slightly, and it struggled to free itself, only to become more entangled. Buddy stood a few feet away, barking gently as if trying to reassure the frightened animal. The father's heart softened at the sight, and he carefully approached the fawn, speaking in a calm and soothing tone. "It's okay, little one. We'll get you out," he said softly. He knelt down and began untangling the vines, working as quickly and carefully as he could. Buddy stayed close, his presence seemingly calming the fawn. After a few tense minutes, the fawn was free. It stumbled slightly as it tried to stand, its legs shaky but unbroken. The father stepped back, giving it space, and Buddy wagged his tail as if encouraging the fawn to move. The fawn looked at them for a moment before bounding off into the woods, disappearing into the foliage. The father let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding and patted Buddy on the head. "Good boy," he said, his voice filled with pride. When they returned to the clearing, the little girl and her mother listened in awe as the father recounted what had happened. The little girl hugged Buddy tightly, her eyes shining with admiration. "You're not just my hero," she whispered. "You're everyone's hero." The rest of the day passed peacefully, but the incident with the fawn stayed on their minds. It was yet another reminder of Buddy's incredible instincts and his unwavering desire to help those in need. The family couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude for having him in their lives. In the weeks that followed, Buddy's fame continued to grow. The documentary about his heroic act with the little girl had aired, and the response was overwhelming. Letters, emails, and even gifts poured in from people who had been touched by his story. Some shared their own experiences with animals who had changed their lives, while others simply wanted to thank the family for giving Buddy a chance. One letter, however, stood out. It came from a woman who ran a rescue organization in a nearby city. She explained that their shelter was struggling to find homes for many of their animals, and she wondered if the family would consider bringing Buddy to an adoption event to inspire others to adopt. The idea resonated with them immediately. Buddy had already changed their lives, perhaps he could help change others as well. On the day of the event, the family arrived at the shelter with Buddy in tow. The little girl held his leash proudly, and Buddy seemed to sense the importance of the occasion. The shelter staff greeted them warmly and introduced them to the other animals waiting for homes. Many of the dogs and cats were shy or nervous, but Buddy's calm and friendly demeanor seemed to put them at ease. As the event began, families and individuals arrived, browsing the rows of kennels and learning about the animals. The little girl shared Buddy's story with anyone who would listen, her enthusiasm infectious. People were drawn to Buddy, petting him and taking photos, but the family made sure to emphasize that every animal there had its own story and deserved a chance at a loving home. By the end of the day, several animals had been adopted, and the shelter staff couldn't thank the family enough. Buddy had been the star of the event, but more importantly, he had helped shine a light on the importance of rescue and adoption. As they drove home, the little girl looked at Buddy with pride. "You're a real-life superhero," she said, and Buddy responded with a wag of his tail. Life continued, filled with small adventures and moments of joy. Buddy remained the heart of the family, a constant source of love and inspiration. And though his days of wandering the streets were behind him, his spirit of bravery and kindness lived on, touching the lives of everyone he met. He had found his purpose, and in doing so, he had given his family and community something truly priceless: hope. Buddy's fame continued to grow in the months that followed. Despite his growing popularity, Buddy remained the same loyal and humble dog who cherished his family and simple joys in life. For the little girl, Buddy was more than a hero, he was her best friend, her confidant, and her protector. Their bond deepened with each passing day, and his presence became an inseparable part of her daily life. One morning, the family decided to visit the town's annual fair. The event was a much-anticipated occasion, filled with colorful stalls, games, and delicious food. Families gathered from all around, and the air buzzed with excitement. The little girl begged to bring Buddy along, and her parents agreed, knowing that he loved being part of their adventures. As they arrived at the fairgrounds, Buddy's tail wagged furiously, his nose twitching at the myriad of scents. The little girl held his leash tightly as they navigated through the bustling crowd. Children ran past with balloons, vendors called out their wares, and laughter echoed through the air. Buddy's calm demeanor and friendly presence drew attention, and people stopped to pet him and ask about his story. Among the fair attractions was a pet showcase event, where owners could enter their animals in various contests. When the organizers saw Buddy, they immediately invited the family to participate. The little girl's face lit up with excitement, and her parents encouraged her to join. They entered Buddy in the Best Rescue Story category, a segment dedicated to animals who had overcome adversity or made a significant impact. As they waited for their turn, the little girl whispered words of encouragement to Buddy, stroking his golden brown fur. When their names were called, she walked proudly onto the stage with Buddy by her side. The audience fell silent as the announcer introduced them and invited the little girl to share Buddy's story. With a mix of nervousness and pride, she began to speak. She recounted how Buddy had saved her from the kidnappers, how he had become part of their family, and how he continued to inspire everyone he met. Her voice trembled slightly at first, but as she saw the smiles and tears in the audience, her confidence grew. By the time she finished, the crowd erupted in applause, and Buddy barked happily, as if understanding the appreciation being showered upon him. The showcase ended with Buddy receiving a special medal and a certificate of recognition. The little girl hugged him tightly, her heart swelling with pride. For Buddy, the medal meant little, but the love and admiration in the little girl's eyes were everything. After the showcase, the family continued to explore the fair, enjoying the rides, games, and treats. Buddy's presence made the day even more memorable, and strangers continued to approach, eager to meet the dog they had just heard about. The little girl beamed with pride every time she introduced him, her love for Buddy shining through every word. Before anyone could react, Buddy sprang to his feet and bolted toward the boy. His powerful legs carried him across the field in seconds, and without hesitation, he jumped into the water. The boy's cries grew louder, but Buddy swam toward him with determination. Gripping the boy's shirt gently in his mouth, Buddy began to guide him back to the edge of the pond. By the time the parents reached the scene, Buddy had already brought the boy to safety. The little boy clung to Buddy's neck, sobbing but unharmed. The parents knelt beside their son, hugging him tightly and showering Buddy with gratitude. The crowd that had gathered erupted in cheers and applause, once again marveling at Buddy's bravery. The little girl ran to Buddy, wrapping her arms around him as tears of pride and relief streamed down her face. "You're amazing, Buddy," she whispered. Her parents nodded in agreement, their hearts filled with gratitude for the dog who had once again proven to be a true hero. The fair organizers, who had witnessed the incident, decided to honor Buddy with a special announcement. They called the family to the stage, where Buddy received yet another medal and a standing ovation. The little girl's cheeks flushed with pride as she held Buddy's leash, knowing that her best friend had touched even more lives that day. As they left the fair that evening, the family couldn't help but reflect on how much Buddy had changed their lives. He was more than just a dog, he was a symbol of courage, love, and selflessness. The little girl hugged Buddy tightly in the back seat of the car, whispering promises of treats and belly rubs as he rested his head on her lap. In the weeks that followed, the story of Buddy's heroic act at the fair spread quickly. Local newspapers and news channels covered the incident, and Buddy's popularity soared even higher. But for the family, Buddy was still the same humble and loving companion who filled their lives with joy. They made sure to balance his newfound fame with plenty of quiet moments at home, where he could simply be their buddy. Despite the attention, Buddy remained grounded. His days were filled with the simple pleasures he loved most, playing fetch with the little girl, napping in the sun, and exploring the neighborhood. For him, the medals and recognition were insignificant compared to the love and happiness he felt with his family. Buddy's story continued to inspire people far and wide. Letters poured in from individuals who had been moved by his courage, and many shared how Buddy's actions had encouraged them to adopt rescue animals. The family often read these letters aloud, marveling at the impact Buddy had made. For the little girl, it was a reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness and bravery could ripple out and change the world. As the seasons changed, so did Buddy's role in the family's life. He became a constant presence in their community, participating in local events, visiting schools to teach children about kindness and safety, and even inspiring a fundraising campaign for the town's animal shelter. Through it all, Buddy remained true to himself, a loyal and loving dog whose journey from stray to hero had touched countless hearts. And for the little girl, Buddy would always be her greatest hero, the friend who had saved her life and filled it with endless love and joy. As the seasons transitioned into winter, the crisp air brought a new kind of joy to the family. The little girl, now more confident and happy than ever, loved the way the snow blanketed the ground and transformed their small town into a picturesque wonderland. For Buddy, the snow was an endless source of fascination. His golden-brown coat stood out against the white landscape as he bounded through the drifts, his tail wagging furiously with every leap. The little girl and her parents often took Buddy on long walks through the snow-covered trails near their home. These walks had become a cherished family tradition, a way to enjoy the beauty of the season and spend quality time together. Buddy's boundless energy and playful antics brought laughter to even the coldest of days. One particularly snowy afternoon, the family decided to venture to a nearby forest known for its serene beauty and winding paths. They packed a thermos of hot cocoa, some snacks, and Buddy's favorite toy, a well-worn tennis ball that he loved to chase. The forest was quiet, save for the crunch of their boots on the snow and the occasional chirp of a bird. The towering trees, their branches heavy with snow, created a magical canopy that seemed to transport them to another world. Buddy led the way, his nose close to the ground as he sniffed out new scents. The little girl followed closely, giggling as she tossed the tennis ball for him to fetch. Her parents walked hand in hand, savoring the peace and tranquility of the moment. The family's bond felt stronger than ever, thanks to the joy Buddy had brought into their lives. As they ventured deeper into the forest, Buddy suddenly stopped in his tracks. His ears perked up, and his body stiffened as he stared into the distance. The family noticed his change in demeanor and paused, their breath visible in the cold air. "What is it, Buddy?" the little girl asked, her voice a mix of curiosity and concern. Buddy let out a low bark and began moving cautiously toward a cluster of trees ahead. The father stepped forward, his protective instincts kicking in. "Stay close," he said, motioning for his wife and daughter to follow him. As they approached, they noticed movement near the base of one of the trees. A small dog, shivering and covered in snow, was huddled against the trunk. Its fur was matted, and it looked up at them with wide, frightened eyes. Buddy stopped a few feet away, his tail wagging gently as if to reassure the scared animal. The little girl's heart broke at the sight. "Dad, we have to help it," she pleaded, her voice trembling. The father knelt down, speaking softly to the dog as he extended his hand. "It's okay. We're here to help." The dog hesitated but didn't move, its small body too weak to resist. Carefully, the father scooped it up, wrapping it in a spare blanket they had brought. The family hurried back to their car, with Buddy walking beside them, occasionally glancing at the rescued dog as if checking on its well-being. Once they reached home, they set up a warm bed for the little dog near the fireplace and offered it food and water. The dog ate hungrily, its eyes darting around nervously but beginning to show signs of trust. Over the next few days, the family focused on nursing the dog back to health. They took it to the vet, who confirmed that it was malnourished and had likely been lost or abandoned for weeks. Despite its rough start, the dog's resilience was evident, and it slowly began to regain its strength. The little girl named it Snowy, inspired by the wintry day they had found it. Buddy seemed to take Snowy under his wing, offering companionship and a sense of safety. The two dogs quickly formed a bond, playing together in the yard and sharing the warmth of the family's love. Snowy, once timid and unsure, began to show a playful and affectionate side, thanks to Buddy's patient and nurturing nature. News of Buddy's latest act of kindness spread throughout the community. People marveled at how a dog who had once been a stray himself could show such compassion to another in need. Buddy's story continued to inspire, serving as a reminder of the profound impact animals can have on each other and on humans. As winter gave way to spring, the family decided to officially adopt Snowy. The little girl was overjoyed, and Buddy seemed equally pleased to have a permanent companion. Snowy's transformation was remarkable. The once scared dog had become a confident and happy member of the family. Together, Buddy and Snowy brought even more laughter and love into their home. The two dogs became inseparable, their bond evident in everything they did. They explored the neighborhood together, played endless games of fetch, and often curled up side by side for naps. For the family, watching Buddy and Snowy thrive was a source of endless happiness and pride. One sunny afternoon, the family hosted a small gathering in their backyard to celebrate Snowy's adoption. Friends and neighbors gathered to share in the joy, bringing their own pets and stories of how Buddy had inspired them. The little girl beamed as she recounted the day they found Snowy, her love for both dogs shining through every word. As the sun set and the guests began to leave, the family sat together on the porch, watching Buddy and Snowy play in the yard. The little girl rested her head on her father's shoulder, a content smile on her face. "Buddy's not just a hero," she said softly. "He's a guardian angel." Her parents nodded in agreement, their hearts full of gratitude for the dog who had brought so much love and light into their lives. Buddy and Snowy, now a dynamic duo, continued to remind everyone they met of the power of kindness, courage, and second chances.